Welcome back. Limpopo is fast emerging as South Africa's next economic pioneer, driven by dynamic young population, abundant natural resources, stern political will, and government committed to industrialization and inclusive growth. The province recently recorded the largest drop in unemployment in the country from 35% to 29.8%, reflecting strong momentum in construction, trade, and services. Building on the success of the Limpopo Investment Conference, which secured about 170 billion rand in pledges, the province is translating investor confidence into action through catalytic projects such as the Musina-Makhado and Fetakgomo-Tubatse special economic zones. For more on this, we're joined by Ndavhe Ramakuela, who's the Limpopo Provincial Spokesperson, to speak to us a bit more about this. Mr. Ndavhe, good to have you on the program this evening. So, Limpopo recorded the fastest drop in unemployment in the country from, 35% to 29.8%. What are the core drivers behind this turnaround that we're seeing there? And how sustainable is this momentum over the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
Good evening, Atlanta, and to all your viewers, and thank you for this opportunity. It is indeed some good news that we have witnessed with the drop in the third quarter of unemployment from 35% to about 29.8%. A lot of this comes from the side of construction. We have seen a lot of work that's happening also in agriculture, but mainly in services industry. They seem to have pushed a lot of jobs to be created within this particular quarter. Although it has moved to 29.8, the province would have loved a significant drop to go below even 20% as it was envisaged on the initial Limpopo development plan. So the great interest that we have seen as well is in the areas of properties that Statistics South Africa reported much earlier in October that Limpopo has contributed 0.9% into the gross domestic product of South Africa, which is a significantly higher number than any other province. And that on its own has shown that the interest in properties, in construction and agriculture are driving this particular push, particularly when we see the drop in unemployment, and we would want to see sustainability of such numbers as we go forward. And you've asked what we plan to do in the next 3 to 5 years. Our pledge is to invest in industrialization, and that's why then we are speaking about the corridors like the Musina-Makhado SEZ, special economic zones, as well as the Fetakgomo-Tubatse, that through those areas, if we are to find a better way of creating more jobs, of industrializing the province, then we'll be able to sustain the level of unemployment that we are pushing towards.
I want us to compare now. Most provinces are still struggling with high and even uneven unemployment, I must say, with the 2 provinces now having more people unemployed than employed. What has Limpopo then done differently than others can learn from? Let's add to this a bit more.
Yeah, if you go back to the statistics in 2023, in all the 4 quarters, Limpopo had done fairly well, creating over 200,000 jobs. And only in 2024, we had a slight dip in the 2 quarters, so which has always placed Limpopo on a higher position in terms of employment. What we have, of course, is the growth in mining. We have seen a lot of interest that has moved into Limpopo through mining. But we have also seen how the social services have gone into bringing economic relief within the province, the development that are happening within the rural areas of Limpopo. We are seeing a lot of urbanization within those rural settlements that have given us almost 95% of urban settlements, even within rural areas. Those on their own are pushing our economy a lot higher. But we are basing all of our efforts on how do we industrialize using areas like the special economic zones that we are now working towards.
So your province, as mentioned, positions industrialization as the centerpiece of this growth strategy. Let's speak more about this. What does industrialization in Limpopo specifically look like, and which sectors are leading job creation there?
I spoke about mining, that if we go into manufacturing, particularly from the byproducts that come from the mines, within the areas of Skokuni, for example, in the Dilokong corridor, we have over 40 mines that are within that area. And we still believe that if we were to have manufacturing support to those particular mines, in the form of industry, which we are going to place within the Fetakgomo-Tubatse special economic zones. We will then be able to have a lot of products not moving out of the produce that come from the mines, not moving out of the province without them being processed. So we are looking into those particular industries that support development in mining, but also we have a fertile land for agricultural purposes. We contribute a lot in terms of agriculture in citrus, tomatoes, avocados, as well as other areas like potatoes. We have a far greater advantage as a province, and it is in those areas that we are working on. And you will see agriculture every now and then coming back in those areas. But we have seen also growth in the service industry, in finance industries that are pushing our economy forward. And those are the areas that we are emphasizing. But we also add an element of tourism. Limpopo brings in a lot of tourists. For over a period of 5 years, we see our numbers are on the number 1 or 2 for international and domestic tourists. In all those areas, then we are seeing a greater push in terms of people who are visiting friends, family, and relatives. But we also see tourists who are coming here for the gaming industry, for hunting, and they're contributing a lot in terms of the economic input of our province. And those are the areas that we're going to focus on to grow them even stronger in the next 5 years.
Let's zoom more into this now. The Musina-Makhado and Fetakgomo-Tubatse SEZs are repeatedly cited as catalysts. What measurable economic impact especially have these SEZ zones had so far? And what milestones can we expect in the next year, in 2026?
Indeed, we have had a bit of a slow start, particularly within the Musina-Makhado SEZ. The process for application for land use and other areas have had a negative influence in terms of the time that we had to start. So almost shifting a bit of our goalposts in those areas. But fortunately, with the start of the 7th administration, the Premier, Dr. Poppy Ramathuba, has emphasized that let us get all the stumbling blocks out of the way, which in the first 6 months, we were able to get permissions for land use with all the departments that are involved, national departments, including the municipality. Just recently, the municipality has then granted us permission for the use of that particular land, and we are now going to deploy bulk infrastructure that will assist the industries to move in once we have completed that particular work in that area. So in 2026, we'll begin to see a laying of bulk infrastructure within Musina-Makhado SEZ, particularly on the north side where we have granted permission. We are concluding then the land use agreement with Makhado municipality on the southern side. Once those processes are concluded, we have investors, fortunately, who have made pledges for renewable energy, who have made pledges for industries that will support the growth of a logistic hub within Limpopo, particularly in the areas of Polokwane, going up to Musina. So all of those areas would help us to work in this. Within the Fetakgomo-Tubatse SEZ, we are working a lot with the platinum metal groups that are being produced or that are being mined within that area. So all the byproducts and other services that are related to that will then help us. The Fetakgomo-Tubatse SEZ has concluded the application processes. We are waiting then for Cabinet to designate the area as a special economic zone. So in 2026, once that comes through, and in the next 2 or 3 months, we will know what the status is. That will then push us into moving into those who already made pledges and who have already signed agreements to come and begin their industries within the Fetakgomo-Tubatse SEZ.
Let's speak more about these pledges. Limpopo has secured about 170 billion rand in investment pledges. How much of this has already been converted into active or real projects? And what mechanisms are in place to ensure a follow-through here?
Well, the investment conference only concluded 2 weeks ago, and the 170 billion pledges for this particular year are appreciated. And practically, they wouldn't have started working on the areas. But what we have done, the investment conference has been running for over 5 years now. We have seen pledges and investment that have created over 20,000 jobs in the past 5 years that we have had this. There are a number of areas. When you look into areas like villages like Nkosana, where in a smart city is slowly developing phase 1 and 2 of the Nkuna city have already begun. If you look into areas like Thabane Mall and other areas have shown great investment in agriculture. We have seen the ZZ2 improving on their pack house. So over 60 billion of investment pledges have already been implemented, and we are able to see some of those fruits. And that's why when we talk about development in agriculture, we can point out, because part of our farmers are linked directly to markets in China, that when they produce avocados, then they go directly into those markets. Tomatoes, they're already going directly into those markets. So in that way, the investment pledges are not just talk shows, but they are practical ways that we have seen that also in the areas of tourism. We have seen a number of people who have established hotels, who have established lodges that are linked to tourists who are coming in for game hunting, who are coming in for ordinary visitation in the Waterberg areas, going all the way to Hoedspruit in the Mopani area and the Vembe areas. So there is a greater improvement in terms of what these pledges will do. But like I have said earlier, other investments are waiting for us to unlock the Musina-Makhado, particularly the issues of renewable energy. We have seen 70% of the investment pledges in the previous year and the current year coming on to the issues of renewable energy. ESCOM, for example, is pledging almost 30 billion towards renewable energy projects that will be done in the Skokuni area. In all that work that we are doing, then that coming from the investment conference, we said we want to push the implementation of the investment from being 25%, so that we should see a 50% implementation. We have a one-stop shop that is available here within the province that will then follow up all the investors and making sure that all the red tapes that block them from beginning their projects are followed through. As we speak now, there are a number of investors from the previous conferences and the current conferences who need an application for land use, a way leave, and other processes that require us to either liaise with the national departments, provincial departments, to make sure, and municipalities, to make sure that they are brought on board. So traditional leaders as well, we bring them on board to make sure that if there's a use of land within their own area for development, they shouldn't take long in allowing those investors to do so. So we are also linking that up with issue of skills development, where we have linked up with a lot of TVETs and SETAs that are going to come on board. For example, in Musina-Makhado, the Vembe TVET College has already asked for a portion of land where they're going to establish a skills academy in that particular area.
Yeah. So with Limpopo holding over 40% of the country's mineral wealth as well, how is the province then ensuring that beneficiation happens in the province rather than minerals being shipped out for value addition elsewhere?
Actually, we hold over 70% of the PMG reserves in this side. The portion of it that we're talking about, the Premier Dr. Ramatuba has met with a number of mining companies that are responsible for platinum, and part of the work that we want them to do is that let them bring issues like smelters into the province. We have one or two within the province, but we think we can get more because of the longevity of the reserves that we have here. Over 60, up to 60 years of platinum is still available within the province. So it is in those areas that we are looking at to make sure that then the industries themselves don't have production houses elsewhere outside the province. What we're seeing at the moment is that a lot of movement, trucks, a lot of trucks are moving out of the province going elsewhere, but we could have them work around the province and then produce as such. And then we are producing through TVETs skilled learners who will be able to work within the mines. That is, by so doing, then they're able to gather skills and serve their own communities and open industries that are even closer within the province without necessarily having to rely to importing skills from outside the province.
Mr. Ramakuela, it's also interesting that Limpopo has one of the youngest populations in the country. How are you translating this demographic advantage into a productive and even competitive labor force?
At the moment, one of the issues that we are facing is that the young labor force that we have a young population up to age 18, while they're still at primary and secondary schools, but then they are forced to leave to go and seek education elsewhere in other provinces. So what we have done, the Premier has called on the Human Resources Development Council. It has been reconstituted now, which then links with TVET colleges, with universities, and to say that let's work on curriculum that will be able to keep the students within our provinces. In addition to that, we have spoken to other universities to open campuses. For example, the TUT campus has just now advertised positions for lecturers that will start in the Giani campus. And part of it, what she has emphasized is that all this should be used towards the skills that are required in the province, skills in mining, skills in manufacturing, skills in agriculture, skills in tourism, so that we don't have then an influx of administrators that are being produced from TVET colleges or universities, where we can produce a skills force that is aimed at growing the economy. So part of it then is to make sure that we have skills development courses, a curriculum that responds to the needs of the province, and increase as well with universities and colleges. The Premier committed just 3 days ago to the people of Sekhukhune, saying that a skills academy in Sekhukhune area and mining actually academy in the Sekhukhune area will be one of the priorities that we're looking at in the next 12 months, so that we work on the process together with the Department of Higher Education to make sure that those are brought in. So by acquiring skills, we are certain that we'll be able to keep a lot of young people within the province. But also when we do that with manufacturing in both the Musina-Makhado, SEZ, and the Fetakgomo, we should keep a huge portion of these young people from going outside the province.
Mr. Ndavhe Ramakuela, Limpopo Provincial Government Spokesperson, thank you so much for your time and for outlining Limpopo's economic trajectory as well. It's quite clear that the province is pushing hard on industrialization, beneficiation as well, youth development, and green growth. And the early results are also showing here. We'll also continue to watch how these reforms translate into jobs, investment, but also long-term prosperity. Thank you so much for joining us, giving us his perspective.